Joining us right now is Mr. R Narayana Murthy, the man who needs no introduction, one of the founding fathers of the Indian IT services industry, and the person, I guess, really responsible for putting India on the tech global map. Mr. Murthy, thanks very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you with us here. I want to start with something here and now, and then we can talk about, your journey to where you are now. You'll be stepping down also as the chairman emeritus. That's what the press release this morning says. Can you tell us why you're doing that?
Well, that's a very good question, very important question. I have all along done new things based on innovation. I have always believed in embracing new ideas. I don't know if you know this, I am perhaps either the only one or one of the very few corporate leaders who hitchhiked all the way from Paris to my hometown, Mysore, and spent 11.5 months on the road and spending $450. So the point I'm making is, I've always believed in doing new things, embracing new ideas, trying out new business models, etc. Therefore, I said last time, when I retired in 2011, I became the chairman emeritus. I said, this time, why don't I try and be just another shareholder? That's all there is to it, nothing more.
But, Mr. Vishal Sikka, on earlier occasion, after he's taken over, has pointed out that he would love very much to have your guidance. That stability and knowing that you are there, if he needs your advice in that role, chairman emeritus role.
First of all, I spent 3 months with him. He was appointed sometime on June 14th or something like that. Since then till today, certainly we have had lots of discussions. I will continue to provide whatever answers I can to the questions that he has, as long as he wants it. Absolutely no doubt at all. I admire him. I have tremendous respect for him. I have enjoyed an excellent relationship with him. So therefore, he, even this morning we were discussing, and I said, certainly, whatever questions you want to pose to me, you're most welcome. All that he needs to do is to pick up the phone, and I'll do that. Therefore, I'll continue to do that. I don't need a title to do that. That's all.
Mr. Murthy, Prashant, of course, is much younger than me. This is Anindya from the Delhi studio. And even when I was in my mid-20s, we'd all started hearing about this great new company. All right, we need to get that audio to Mr. Murthy slightly low. I think he's getting too much in there. Even when I was in my mid-20s, we had started hearing of this great new company called Infosys, had started hearing about you. You were splashed on all the covers. And I think sometime around the late 90s, there used to be this kind of email about you, which used to do the rounds on Hotmail in those days. And that was something written by your wife. I don't know whether it was actually written by your wife or it was just a series of Shaggy Dog stories which were put together. And one of the things that said was that you wanted to be a full-time Communist Party member. And to some point...
That's not a hearsay at all. That is true. I was a strong leftist as a student. I wanted to join Communist Party. But then when I went to France, I met a lot of leaders from the right, the left, and the center. In fact, I had discussions with the then chairman of the French Communist Party, Georges Marchais. I read a lot, I discussed a lot, and I came to the conclusion that the only way societies can solve the problem of poverty is through creation of more and more jobs with higher and higher income. Therefore, I converted myself from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. You're right, so I was once upon a time. As I think it was George Bernard Shaw who said, if you're not an idealist in your 20s, you have no heart, and if you're an idealist in your 40s, you have no brain. I think that's going too far. That's perhaps extreme. But the reality is this, that over the period of last 40, 50 years, I have realized that the only way you can solve the problem of poverty is through creation of jobs with good income. That's all.
And I guess, in a sense, that you can be an idealist as well while not being a leftist, right? That's
No, you can be absolutely.
I think that's the lesson that we've learned from Infosys.
When you say compassionate capitalist, sorry.
That's the lesson we've learned from Infosys of an upright.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Mr. Murthy, you were talking about jobs, and I'm going to come back later a little bit to Infosys specifically, but I just want to use this opportunity to ask you that do you think currently there's enough being done to do that, to build jobs?
Well, you know, Mr. Modi is focused on it. The reality of India is this, that we have to start by our job creation initiative through exports, because the disposable income in India is low, so therefore we may not be able to sell all our things domestically. If we want to create large number of jobs, like China did, like East Asian countries did, the first step is to start exporting. That means we have to make it easy for foreigners, and of course to our Indian investors, domestic industrialists, easy to invest in India. We have to create better infrastructure. We have to reduce our bureaucracy. We have to improve our ports. We have to, we have to make it, make foreigners welcome in this country. If we did all these things, I do believe that, like China, we too will hit a much higher growth rate for a more sustained period. There is no other shortcut.
Mr. Murthy, if one looks at what Infosys did, Infosys in a certain sense was a pioneer in exporting, right? Because you were exporting some of the things that India was good at, which was we had a huge population of educated people, IT professionals, engineers, and you took that dividend and you went to export it. But do we have that in other spaces as well? I mean, are we competitive in other spaces in terms of talent, ability, technology?
I'll give you one data point. Probably about 8 or 10 years ago, we wanted to buy 15,000 safe deposit boxes to be installed in each of the hostel rooms or hotel rooms that we have. We have about 16,000 rooms at Infosys in our 11 development centers. So from India we got a quote, and at that time it was about 4,000 rupees. And the quote that we got from China was 1,500 rupees. So what that means is we Indians have to become more productive. We Indians have to make it easier for our industrialists to become more and more efficient. And if we did all of that, then I do think that we will become competitive with our competitors in China and other countries to sell into global markets. That's the story of the Indian software industry, and I think that story has some validity for other sectors too.
But if I look at it,
of course you have to have global level of quality. Please.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Murthy, but if I look at it to a certain extent, the fact that an Infosys or a Wipro or later on a TCS could do what they did, the government played a very significant role. One of the things that the government did was facilitated what you were doing in terms of taxes, in terms of, creating IT parks, making it easier.
I am not a great fan of tax exemption. I think government should abolish all tax exemptions. I think this tax exemption is not the right thing. However, having said that, I agree with you, thanks to Mr. Vittal, who was the Secretary of the Department of Electronics in 1991. He was the first person who installed satellite earth stations. He decentralized decision-making power in SDP to various state capitals, reduced friction to businesses, almost eliminated the need for IT corporate leaders to go to Delhi and wait in the corridors. I think those are the kinds of things that we need to do. Not tax exemption. I think tax exemption for companies that make, companies like Infosys that make 10, 12,000 crores of tax. You know, of course, we pay 28% tax. We pay the highest percentage of tax amongst our IT companies. But the point I'm making is we don't need tax exemption.
No, as startup,
Smaller
when you want to encourage something,
up to 50 crores need.
I'm saying when you want to encourage industries, as you were saying, that a deposit, safety deposit box is 4,000 rupees in India and you could get it from China for 1,500. China tends to subsidize some of these manufacturing sectors, both in terms of kind of cost subsidy, tax subsidy. If I look at India, both IT and telecom did very well based on a significant amount of sunrise sector tax holiday. You don't think that that needs to be done to some of the manufacturing sector as well?
You know, at least my personal view is, if you want to encourage companies, encourage small companies. Say for the first 5 years or up to a revenue of 50 crores or 100, up to a profit of 50 crores or something, we will give you tax exemption. But to continue to give tax exemption for large companies, I think that is not the right thing. We, you know, in this country, these big companies have to contribute towards common good, towards public good. We, you know, the government has responsibility for primary education, for health care, it has to take care of the poor, all of that. So therefore, asking for tax exemption by bigger companies, I don't know. I am totally opposed to that.
You said that ease of doing business has to become much better. Exports is the way to go because there isn't enough demand here locally. The Make in India event which happened in Delhi, and it's a campaign, what are your thoughts about it? Was there enough detail? Is it going to be essentially a branding campaign for all that the government has announced so far? So everything gets bunched together under this Make in India slogan, or there's enough meat and substance there?
I'll tell you, I have had an eye operation, therefore I was rendered immobile till very recently, therefore I couldn't go to Make in India campaign, therefore I am not in a position to comment on it. But the reality is very simple. Just go to, you know, 1,000 corporations outside India from the developed world and ask them what are the 5 things or 10 things that Government of India should do to make them feel more and more enthusiastic to come and invest in India. That's all there is to you. You don't need any big campaigns, you don't need big tamasha, you don't need any big thing. Just conduct a survey by a very, very well-respected survey company. And if you did that, you will come to know what the issues are. Of course, most of it we know. And then if you implemented them like China has done, of course our exports will grow. Of course we'll create jobs.
Mr. Murthy, sentiment in India amongst business, within the business community has improved quite a bit since the election results were announced. Do you think now with, 3-4 months behind us, that enthusiasm has waned a little bit? The reality setting in that it's not going to be that easy. It's still, the sentiment is still much better compared to what it was last year or the years before. But do you think people are starting to realign expectations lower?
Well, we have a charismatic leader in our Prime Minister. He's a strong leader. He has a clear focus. He has determination. He has high aspirations. He wants to transform India to fulfill the pledge of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru and others. So therefore, I do believe that all of us must be very enthusiastic, give him full support in his endeavor to make India reach those aspirational targets. I don't think we should become negative, we should not become cynical, all of that. But the reality is simply this, there are only a few things that we need to do. And as long as we do those things, we will be able to, the government will be able to rally behind the Prime Minister Modi in his achieving his dream, his aspiration.
Mr. Murthy, I know you're very, very busy and you have to go, but one final question. You started off by saying that India is an economy where we don't have that much effective demand and we have to be export driven and create jobs through that, and then maybe that leads to demand growing. There is also a view that the government should spend, especially through the public sector right now, to kick off a demand cycle. What is your stand on that?
No. Look, I have studied Taiwan, I have studied South Korea, I have studied Singapore, I have studied Thailand, I have studied Malaysia, I have studied China, and I have studied Brazil to some extent. In all these countries, it was not that government invested Government invested in reducing friction to business, government invested in infrastructure, government made foreign investors welcome, government created reasonable schooling for their children, government created reasonable recreation facilities, government made them feel welcome. Of course, we have to do it for Indian industrialists, so I am not saying it's to the exclusion of Indian industrialists, but the reality is if you want large investments in several sectors, that's all what you need to do. And I can tell you, there is no need to subsidize or there is no need for government to spend huge amounts of money. We have to have a set of laws that people will believe in. We cannot do things on retrospective basis. All of that has to go. Those things will remove whatever little credibility that we have. So therefore, I think as long as the government is seen as a good catalyst, as long as government is seen as determined to make life easy for investments, both for Indian investors, Indian industrialists as well as foreign industrialists, I think, we will be able to redeem the pledge. Otherwise, we can keep talking, we can argue till the fire freezes, not much will happen.
I'm going to be greedy and really this will be the last question, Mr. Murthy. Will you ever consider a hands-on executive role in government?
No, I don't think so. At 69, I don't think I should have any such responsibility. However, I think there could be a lot of advisory roles where certainly whatever little ideas I have, I'll be happy to share it. They may be, some of them may be right, some of them may be wrong. At least there could be a discussion and debate. That's all what is needed.
But why not
there
an
are lots
executive
of youngsters
role?
in this
69
country
is very young in today's age, sir.
No, I think it may be, but I think as far as I'm concerned, in a country which has the largest number of under 35s in the world, I don't think people above 60 or 65 should be hankering for executive roles. That's my personal view. I may be wrong, but I think people should retire at 65. And in extraordinary circumstances, one may have to do 1 or 2 years like I did, but that should be much more of an exception rather than the rule. No, I don't agree, that we need old people to be in executive positions.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Murthy. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Wonderful. Pleasure.